over on the east side, and wind power, Ivanpah Solar out here. So we have a whole slew of different things that we're dealing with at any given time. Now this is my particular area, and as you can see, San Joaquin, Calaveras, that gives me that South Delta, Mono and Inyo, LA's playground, and then the valley where we grow the nation's food supply, and down here where we produce, I think it's about 70% of the oil that's produced in California is actually produced in Kern County. We deal a lot with the oil industry, and I like to think we've got a pretty good working relationship with them as well. So this is a little tough to read. Back in 2011, we developed a system to kind of try to figure out where our officers are spending their time. As with any law enforcement agency, I'm very upfront about this. We spend about 23% of our time doing administrative paperwork. That's for the young man sitting over there. If you ever want to go into law enforcement, you're going to be doing a lot of paperwork. Those two guys back there can tell you the same thing. So, but this is a look at it by species. You see, we spend a little less than 3% of our time doing trout enforcement. We almost 1% of our time doing sturgeon enforcement, and we're involved in a whole lot of different things. We do habitat management. Deer is actually about 5% of our time, and so we try to actually target and direct our patrols to target certain areas at certain times to deal with people when they're out there using the resource. We also look at it by category. Just general patrols, about 11% of our time. We spend almost 9.5% of our time doing training. There's the administrative part. Do about 6.5% of our time working on big game species issues. A relatively small percent of our time working on commercial activity. This habitat activity portion is growing because we also throw our marijuana work in there. So, next slide. Kern County, Lieutenant Halverson over here, promoted him last year, and he was also our District Officer of the Year last year. You've got some of the finest officers in the state. But this is the area that these guys cover. And basically, it's all of Kern, all of San Bernardino, north of 58. Next slide. He has 5 officers that he directly supervises. And in 2013, those 5 officers, they issued 428 citations, made 21 physical arrests. They talked to over 11,177 resource users and issued 257 warnings. So you get a lot of efficiency with just these guys here. They work their tails off out there trying to protect the state's resources. And really, I couldn't be prouder of the squad as a whole. Also, just recently, the legislature had passed some legislation that puts a tax on the transportation of oil to our refineries in California. This tax goes to fund our oil spill, this stands for Oil Spill Prevention and Response. We have 2 officers that are now going to be assigned to Kern County that will be working directly with the oil fields to try to provide better and more timely service out there. When you have spills that hit the waterways in California, they're required to notify us. We're required to go out and work with them to get it cleaned up, make sure that we don't damage endangered species and those types of things. So the more officers we have, the more responsive we can be. Hopefully, the better trained our officers are, the more that they work with industry, the faster we can get those rigs pumping and back into service so that there's no downtime for jobs. I can tell you from my perspective, we're always pushing to get out there. We're customer service oriented. So we're not just out there writing tickets and trying to catch bad guys. We are also doing oil spill prevention and response. We're doing stream bed alteration cases. We do a lot of marijuana work here. I can tell you from my perspective, one of the single greatest threats to wildlife in California is illegal marijuana gardens in our foothills. They're mixing pesticides directly into the water, pumping it on the plants, which is percolating down into the groundwater supply. They're leaving out herbicides and rat poisons that are killing your deer population. The reason that we got involved in this 10 years ago when I first started assigning guys to do this kind of work was because I had hunters coming to me telling me they were scared to death to be out there hunting because they were afraid a drug cartel they'd get shot at. And they'd walk into a garden and have to back out. So we started getting involved. We created a marijuana enforcement team, and through a bunch of other legislation. We've got people working up in the Emerald Triangle trying to deal with this issue, but you have a big issue here in Kern County. We've taken a garden out of Fay Canyon, which is on department property every year the last 6 years, I think. So there are a lot of issues going on here, and we do the best we can with the resources we have, but like I said, you have some of the best and brightest here in Kern County. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Croker, who's going to talk to you about our wildlife program.
So I'm Tim Croker, wildlife biologist. When I started working down here in the South Valley, waterfowl and upland game bird work, so I'm kind of filling in for your biologist, for the Kern County biologist who's not available. But could you flip the switch? A lot of what we do, we're working with some of the big game animals, not just deer. We do a lot of deer work, and I'll get into that a little bit, but we work with, do surveys and monitoring for pronghorn and elk. We do some translocation of elk in this part of the world. The deer work, we have a big emphasis on deer. Started doing our research in the region up in Tuolumne County, and with the purpose of moving from north to south, looking at the herds, and you know, honestly, the rugged Kern County country is the toughest part to do capture work in. This picture is taken from one of the deer on one of my projects, so this is Madera, Fresno County. We're putting on GPS collars. First that we've used them in the region is this project, and that this type of collar, we can get information almost real time. They collect the data and send it to my computer. So we can get out into the field real quick. If we have one of our deer die, we can figure out what killed it, gather information there. We can look at data points from a doe, like right after she drops her fawns. We know where she was in the 2 or 3 weeks during that fawn drop period, and we can get into the field and look at habitat conditions for an individual animal right away. So it's a really neat tool. And then this year we're starting a pilot project for the deer that use the upper Kern watershed. So we're looking at putting the same type of collars on animals in that, and finding out migration, winter-summer range relations, and how hard it's going to be to actually work with deer in that canyon, because that's a lot different topography. Next slide, please. Another thing that our program is working a lot with, aside from nuisance wildlife, but we do a lot of work with upland game projects. This is a guzzler, and a lot of Kern County is very arid and doesn't produce a whole lot of birds if there's no water, but everything's there if there's water. You put a water source like this, to pad there for catching the rain, and then a tank that they can walk down into and get their drink. So I don't know, am I walking the street with people? The last couple of years we've been doing a lot of work with this type of thing. You flip the slide, please. This is one of the projects that Ben Lewis, he's our Game Bird Heritage Coordinator, worked on. Before and after, after 40 or so, 50 years of being out there in the field, they start breaking down the pads. If they're asphalt, or they start, stuff washes down into the tank. So you pull it apart, clean out the tank to give it a higher water storage level, and then repair the pad. So that, we're working on water sources in the desert, and we actually have a lot of cooperation and help from volunteer groups. Our quail sportsmen out in the Ridgecrest area. Quail, well, not sure if they're Quail Unlimited right now or who they are, but they've been working for years filling up guzzlers when it doesn't rain, making repairs, and we've also provided a grant to start working with some sportsmen that are working out in the Templars on some of the guzzlers that have been out there. So, we have a lot of sportsmen input into the program. So, next slide, please. So then, here we are with the Bakersfield population of kip fox. And I know that Vicki, your biologist, would have a lot more input about kip fox, but I can talk a little bit about it if later in the question and answer time about what's happened recently or things like that. Kip fox in Bakersfield, and that's about it. I'll turn it over to Dean, and thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dean Marston, and as the slide says here, I'm a fisheries program manager for our central region. I'm headquartered in Fresno. I've been in the department a little over 30 years. And so my job is to help Stafford roll out the department's mission and down on the ground for the 12-county region and Region 4. So within my program, we do a variety of activities to serve and protect the fishing resource, and also provide angling opportunity to the public. And so we do things like water planning, so we have some fisheries scientists that work with water project developers on the front end, when it's a lot more cost effective to do so rather than on the backside of project development, when it becomes much more cost restrictive to do those kinds of improvements that protect fish and wildlife. And we have some coastal fisheries managers that deal with salmon and steelhead management on the coast. We have Central Valley or San Joaquin River salmon and steelhead fisheries investigators. We have some water quality investigators that look at water quality and relate to quality of fisheries habitat and food and health safeties warnings that we work with the Department of Public Health. We have some aquatic educators, and then I have two of my staff here. One is Ryan Beal, who is our inland fisheries management supervisor, right here. And then we have Greg Collenborn, who oversees our trout hatcheries for the region. Next slide, please. So here's the 12-county region, 12 counties within the central region. So you can see here, we have maybe 60 people that are broadly dispersed throughout the 12 county areas here. So we have a field office that we cohabitate with some other functions within the department that's located in St. Louis. We have a field office in Monterey, a field office up at the Grange near the Gusto, and then a regional office in Fresno, and then we have some staffs scattered at our hatcheries for blue fish. I don't know if you see on these the locations of our hatcheries. Next, please. So just a quick thing about that you may have heard. So this is the San Joaquin River here. So we have two major salmon and steelhead management programs that are ongoing here. First of which is located downstream of Frying Dam that seeks to restore salmon in the mainstem of the San Joaquin River, about 150-mile reach as a result of the Frying settlement that occurred about 10 years ago. And that program is run by my colleague, Cheryl Heller. And then we have another smaller program that's headquartered out of the Grange that deals with salmon restoration in eastside tributaries, Stanislaus, developing the rivers. And collectively, we do research to identify quality of habitat needed for these species. And then we also do physical habitat restoration work. My apologies. Everybody hear me okay now? And we also operate fish hatcheries to give the populations a boost so that we can accomplish our fisheries restoration goals. Thank you. So here's our water quality project here. I just a lot of things here. I just want to draw your attention here to the methylmercury mercury consumption advisory. So we have a couple staff that work with the Department of Public Health to identify what mercury low levels are in fish so that we can help advise you if you're thinking about eating these fish, how often you can eat them and whether or not it's safe to do so. Next slide, please. So we have a trout in the classroom project. It's pretty popular. I don't know if you or your children have participated in it, but we have a partnership program with teachers in local schools, and we supply eggs and oftentimes aquarium for the classrooms. The kids just have a blast, get to see the eggs hatch and the little fry grow in the tanks. Then they get to go out to the field and do a release of the fish. It's pretty cool. Kids get really excited, so it's a fun, exciting program. Next. So we have the Heritage and Wild Trout project that Ryan Beal here oversees, and basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect these fisheries that are very unique. In fact, this is the only place in the world that these, like the state fish, California golden trout and little current golden trout and the current river rainbow actually exist. Provides a world-class angling opportunity. People come from all over the world to come and try to catch one or more of these species. And then we've been doing drought monitoring in a special creek called Volcano Creek in the California golden trout wilderness area, and we wanted to see what the population trends were doing as a result of the drought. So even though the water levels have reduced, the fish populations have become reduced a little bit, but overall the populations are doing well even after